8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today, we're talking about the implications of gifting assets away. Todd, if you're trying to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care expenses, what are the risks in giving your assets to a child rather than transferring them to an irrevocable trust?
Yeah, that's a great question. So many people feel like, oh my gosh, it's an irrevocable trust. I've lost all control. I've given up the ability to do just about anything. You hear that all the time. But you know what? Think about it. If I instead gave my investment portfolio to my children, right, or my rental property to my children, I mean, how much control do I have over that? I got none. I mean, I got to rely on them to pretty much do everything, not to mention the fact that, let's say I gave my rental property away. Technically, I can't sell it. I can't do anything without the children doing it. And what you forget is the children then would be entitled to all the rent. Well, you gave away your rental income. What about if a child gets a divorce and you gave them an investment portfolio to hold on to? Well, that money would all be subject to their divorce or any of their creditors. Plus, it all gets picked up on their income tax return. Folks, you give away assets, you lose all control and create lots of adverse income tax and gift tax consequences. You're way better off setting up an irrevocable trust to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care.
Educate yourself about the implications of gifting your assets away. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets right now by calling 866-848-5699, or you can request a copy from LegalExchangeShow.com. Once again, 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of the dry season in the islands, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor that provides investment advisory services. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else, and do not guarantee profit. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by taking part in this year's DAV 5K. For more information, visit dav5k.boston. The DAV 5K Boston is proudly presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
As we kick things off here on a Thursday on the Financial Exchange, it's Chuck, Mike, and Tucker with you. And just a heads up on some things that we're going to be covering today. We're proud to partner with our Boston-based affiliate, WRKO, as they raise money for the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The radiothon for the DAV is tomorrow, and we'll be giving you donation information throughout tomorrow's show. So with the Veterans Day weekend upon us, we wanted to give a little preview of some of the info that you're going to be hearing about tomorrow, and really why supporting the DAV of Massachusetts is such a great cause. We've got two guests that are lined up for you today. Dan Stack, the CEO of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts, will join us and tell us more about the work that the DAV does and how the donations it receives will be used. And then we're also going to be hearing from Rob Santiago, a 20-year Navy veteran and the first Puerto Rican and LGBTQ Veterans Commissioner in Boston's history. So those are on deck for today. But we kick things off today talking about Disney earnings from yesterday. Disney reported earnings after the bell, Michael. And what we are seeing thus far today is that Disney stock is up about 6% in trading. Not something we've seen a lot in the last year or two, where Disney stock seemingly has been punished after a lot of earnings releases. This is a happy relief from that for Disney investors, to this point at least.
Happiest relief on earth. Disney has been really struggling for the last few years, and obviously I think that was capped by Bob Chapek's, should we call it a termination? Yeah. He was asked to leave. He was the successor to Bob Iger. Bob Iger now back at the helm running Disney. And, quite honestly, Chuck, this was, discussed in major outlets as, Iger laying out the vision for Disney's future and this new look for Disney. I'm not seeing much of that, or at least I'm not seeing that as much of a diversion from where they were in the past. To me, this reads as Disney is trying to be really disciplined around costs and seems to be getting rewarded for it. Did you see anything in particular that to you reads like a real, line in the sand or a turn from where they've been over the last couple of years?
No, the cost cutting's the big thing. I'll quote here from the Wall Street Journal. The entertainment giant Wednesday said it's seeking $7.5 billion in cost cuts, up from the $5.5 billion it targeted at the beginning of the year. They're just trying to rein in costs a lot more heavily at this point. And so I think that when you look at the actual businesses that make up Disney, just because it really is a few different components that, yes, they have some tie-ins from a branding perspective, but really they're separate businesses. It's something where you've got some different struggles going on in each of them as far as what they're trying to do. So let's go through those different businesses.
Let's do it.
Streaming. This is where all the excitement was for the company 3-4 years ago. And the reason why was simple. Disney wanted to bill itself as a streaming company because streaming companies like Netflix were getting top dollar on their shares. It was look at how much we can, what the market cap of Netflix is. If we can get Disney to be valued that way with more people who are, in the ecosystem, that's what we want to be.
And hell, in spring of 2021, their shares touched nearly $200 a share, and I think it was largely on that streaming growth.
And the worm is turned on the streaming side now, where, especially when you look at these companies that are this hybrid streaming and traditional TV model, they're all kind of losing, some of them are actually losing money, but even on just the streaming piece, Disney Plus has lost $11 billion since its launch back in late 2019.
Yeah.
So the streaming piece for Disney is not profitable, which is something that, hey, when all that mattered was growth to the market, that's fine, but the market's not looking at unprofitable growth the same way today.
No, they're certainly not. And the company highlighted the popularity of a few movies that they put out recently, and acknowledging that, yeah, these were successful movies. So Elemental, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and The Little Mermaid. I've seen 2 out of the 3 of these, and I saw them on their streaming platform to which I already subscribe. None of these did I go see in theater. None of these did I pay an additional fee for. None of these did I see early on in the streaming platform when I would have had to pay the rental cost. And so I continue to struggle with, Disney, what exactly is your strategy here? Because I don't think that these 3 movies contributed to a massive new list of signups on your platform. So what is the goal with your movie theater rollout? Because right now it seems to me that it's, hey, we want to have box office success, but we're also willing to roll these out into our streaming platform pretty rapidly thereafter. And I don't, in spite of the big viewership numbers, I don't know that these were successful films monetarily.
So you've got this situation that is going on in terms of Disney Plus not being profitable, which is a problem. Now let's turn to the box office side of things. And first and foremost, you have to remember that in the post-pandemic era, box office grosses are just down from where they were. If you look at the period from 2009 through 2019, so a decade, really 11 years, in the U.S. box office, you're between about $10 billion in gross and $11.5 billion in gross. It was a pretty narrow 15% range that generally trended up over time. Last year, $7.3 billion gross. This year, we're probably going to do somewhere in the ballpark of $8.25 to $9, depending on how the last month and a half goes. So overall gross numbers are down. But here's the other piece. As you look at 2018, and 2018, the top 3 movies by gross in the U.S. were Disney. And then they also had numbers 9 and 10. So it was 5 out of the top 10. This year, you take a look at it, and you've got 1, 2, 3 out of the top 10, and none of the top 3. So there's kind of an issue there where people are not turning out to see what Disney's putting on the plate the same way they were 4 or 5 years ago. So the box office side of things is struggling too, and it's struggling across the board. It's struggling with the Marvel movies that are not doing the grosses they used to. Now, granted, you can't really compare anything to like Avengers Endgame because it's like a top 2 or 3 movie of grossing all time. But Ant-Man's got to do more than $200 million domestically. It's got to be in the $300 to $400 million range. It's not going to do 6 or 7, but it's got to be there. So you've got an issue with the movies not drawing the way they want them to. That's kind of a problem when that's part 2 of your business. Part 3 is your traditional cable side of things, led mostly by ESPN. And ESPN saw 2% revenue growth, so the revenue's stable at least. Operating income down 1.7%. So the ESPN unit isn't falling apart at this point, at least in this year. But it's not really an engine of growth either. Like, what do you pay for a business that is profitable but not really growing?
Yeah. It's interesting. They certainly continue to make it front and center, and Iger talked about it a fair bit, but the fact that they are now breaking out the segment as its own business does really call into question what their long-term strategy is for. To me, that's an indication that, hey, maybe this is not something that they want to be long-term part of their business, but we'll find out.
Now, the parks and experiences business did see operating income up 31% from a year earlier, so that's theme parks, cruise ships, merch, like all that stuff. So you've got some profit growth happening there. But it's a real question as to where they go from here, and I think, quite honestly, it's going to be on the streaming side they make changes. Prices are going to go up again significantly, in my opinion, and there's 2 reasons for that. The first is that, hey, if someone wants to pay for a streaming service with no ads, the prices are just going to have to be higher.
Yeah, we've seen that in Netflix. What's the cost for no ads, full package at Netflix? Over $20 a month now?
I think it's $22.99 now.
Yeah.
And on the ad side of things, you're going to see more of a push. The calculus that all these streaming services are making is either, hey, you're going to pay us way more for no ads, or we're going to push everyone to the ad-supported tier and we're going to make the money on the ads. Which is where we kind of thought this would end up 10 years ago. We talked about how there was going to be this window for the golden age of streaming, which has now died because companies realize they can't make money just selling it at like $5 or $6 a pop each month.
It was sure nice for all the rest of us when they could, though.
It was great for a while.
Yeah. All the shareholders subsidizing my Disney Plus membership. I like that.
Yeah, now it's just not quite as fun. So Disney here, I think the message that I would get coming out of this quarter is we're really going to be aggressive in trying to cut costs. And most of our businesses are at least stable, but we need more than stable from at least a couple of them. And the movie business, we've got to figure out how to either get more money from it or cut the cost of what we're producing because that's just not working anymore.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break here. We'll stick with a little bit of entertainment-related news with an agreement with the SAG-AFTRA union and its employers. We'll talk about that when we return.
The Financial Exchange is now available on your Alexa smart speaker. Ask to play the Financial Exchange and catch up on anything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Legacy planning is incredibly important if you want to make sure you keep your assets in your family. But if it isn't done properly, you can create significant problems. Gifting assets to your children is admirable, but may not always be the best course of action, especially if there are financial difficulties or a divorce proceeding. Learn how to protect yourself and your family by calling Cushing & Dolan and asking for their brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. In it, you'll learn about information related to the gifting process, what tax issues may arise from a major gift like a home or a vacation property, and what happens to the asset if a child has creditor issues. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of the dry season in the islands, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com. Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K Boston. Let's meet their CEO, Mark Vonner.
I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 18 years old, joining a long line of family members who also served our country. After my service, I connected with the VA healthcare systems where I attended meetings with disabled veterans and learned for the first time about the DAV. I was so impressed with the work they do to help millions of veterans, including providing necessary services like transportation, education, and financial opportunities. Today, I stand a proud partner of the DAV and the 2023 DAV 5K. My company, Veterans Development Corporation, is a general contracting firm working with many disabled veterans, and I hope that by sharing my story, many other disabled veterans will be able to reach their goals once they conclude their service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 11th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Building a solid financial strategy is a core element to enjoying your retirement years. That's why you need advice that you can count on. At the Armstrong Advisory Group, we understand the challenges of positioning your assets to help you maintain your wealth over time. Our goal is to offer advice that is both suitable and in your best interest. When you hire one of us, you hire all of us so you can be comfortable knowing that every advisor in our firm is dedicated to helping you create a realistic plan for your later years. Visit us today at armstrongadvisory.com AmstrongAdvisory.com and sign up for a free, no-obligation planning session. Click the Get Started button at the top right corner of the homepage, and you can select the day and time that works best for you. Go to AmstrongAdvisory.com and let us help you secure your financial future. That's ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The latest news on inflation and how the markets are reacting every morning, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All of us at the Financial Exchange are excited about this year's DAV 5K at Fort Independence at Castle Island on Saturday, November 11th. The race is sold out, but you can still help our great American heroes by visiting DAV5K.Boston and making a donation today. Your gifts can help any number of DAV initiatives, including the transportation program, which takes disabled veterans to and from medical appointments at various VA medical centers. That's DAV5K Boston. The DAV 5K Boston is proudly presented by Veterans Development Corporation.
Mike, we finally have an agreement for actors to get back to work on producing shows and movies and all that fun stuff.
Seems so. Hasn't been voted on yet, so we do not have the full details, but it's going to be a rush back into studios and film sets here as the actors and writers get back to work. What we do know at this stage is that it was apparently the largest increase in minimum wages in 40 years for SAG-AFTRA, residuals for streaming programs, and what seems like was one of the biggest hang-ups was how you navigate potential future artificial intelligence and getting protections in for those actors. So seemingly one of the concerns there was, I am an actor, I pass away, the studio owns a bunch of, cuts from different films that I made, and they train an artificial intelligence to be able to create a new movie without protections built in there for, me, my estate, around how those rights are used. And apparently there was some agreement formed on there, as there was, I believe, too, Chuck, on the side of the writers, was there not?
On the AI side of things?
I think so. I
Yes.
believe there were some protections built in for writers there as well.
It's actually kind of remarkable that the studios were unwilling to budge up. I mean, not remarkable. I guess in theory, if you can pay for your talent once and then never have to pay for it again,
Pretty
of
beneficial.
of course you'd like that if you were a movie studio.
I just can't imagine a court anywhere siding with movie studios on that should it get to court.
Well, if it's built into if it's collectively bargained,
I suppose.
then
yeah.
it can't, there's nothing illegal there. If you collectively bargain it, that's what it is, which is
Right.
why the union was pushing back on this. But I guess just as a matter of basic human decency, you would, hope that you would look at someone and say, hey, this is, a unique talent. I'm not going to just try to make sense of your voice and image and then never have to pay you again, because that's kind of devaluing that person as a person.
Well, and just imagine the blowback from viewers too, right? Like a
Viewers
studio.
wouldn't care. Viewers wouldn't care.
You don't think so? If like
No.
the kids of an actor came out and said, like, they never asked us, they didn't request our permission, they're paying us nothing for this, that viewers wouldn't put up some sort of stink? I don't know. I would find that kind of disgusting.
Mike, given everything that goes on in the world right now
Yeah,
that is
people aren't gonna care about
objectionable,
that. Yeah, you're right.
you think that people are going to say, you know what? The place where I'm going to make my stand is that Brad Pitt should get paid for that new movie instead of them using AI of him.
Fair. Okay. Yeah, nobody's gonna care.
No, and that's why the studios were pushing for it so hard, is they wanted to just say, no, we're going to pay you once and never have to pay you again. I get it as someone who looks at the numbers. As someone who looks at humans, I'm like, man, that's kind of despicable.
Yeah, it would be pretty ugly. So this one seems that it'll be ratified. We'll see where I think the vote's next week, perhaps. Sets everything up to get back into filming and back to promoting movies and getting movies made for. I mean, heck, at this stage they're probably filming movies for next summer that they're trying to get out and pushed out. The only other big hang-up that I'm aware of out there for the future of of movies and just Hollywood in general is that there is one more union that has a contract through next year who's undoubtedly been hit pretty hard by these strikes, which is the Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. So if you're a camera operator during all this, you haven't been on strike, but you probably haven't been getting paid, and so there could be a little bit more of this in 2024. We'll see.
Anything else to cover on this as far as, look, you've got some movies that are, by all accounts, that they're made and they're ready to go, but they need to go through their promotional stuff. The one I'm thinking of is Dune Part 2.
Yep.
Which was supposed to be coming out, I think, this week, actually,
really?
Originally, or somewhere. Let me see when it was originally supposed to be.
My main takeaway is apparently they're making a sequel to Twister.
They are?
Yeah. Yeah, so they are making a sequel to Twister.
There's going to be a sequel to Dante's Peak then, probably. All those 90s movies.
Yeah. I used to have nightmares about Dante's Peak, man.
Here's the thing.
Poor old grandma.
Yep.
Jumping off the boat.
Get in the boat!
Here's the thing. Millennials right now are going to go through the same thing that baby boomers went through in the 90s, which is you're heading into that peak earnings time of like late 30s to mid 50s.
Yeah.
And everything's going to be targeted at you. There's a reason why Volkswagen brought back the Beetle in 1997 or whatever it was.
Right.
And it's because every single baby boomer had fond memories of driving around in Beetles in the 60s. You're going to see the same thing with millennials now, where all of the IP and everything that was cool back in the 90s and early 2000s, it's going to be all marketing to that childhood now, and that idea of, hey, what happened when you were 15 to 25 years old, we're bringing that back. So Twister 2, the obvious problem is Bill Paxton's dead.
Yeah, so I don't know who's in here, but we have Daisy Edgar-Jones, who's a 25-year-old British actress who apparently stars in Twisters.
They have tornadoes in the UK?
No, she's doing all this in Oklahoma. Is where they're a lot of Twisters in Oklahoma. So don't worry about that piece. She's just
you know who's actually going to be in this?
Maybe putting on a fake American accent. I don't know.
No, you know who's going to be in this is Glenn Powell.
Who?
He's the guy from Top Gun Maverick.
Colin's brother.
Haven't seen it yet.
He's, what the heck's his name? I'm completely blanking on it. Whatever. Good story. In any case, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we've got Wall Street Watch, and we're going to be joined by Dan Stack from the DAV right after this.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K Boston. Let's meet their CEO, Mark Vonner.
I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 18 years old, joining a long line of family members who also served our country. After my service, I connected with the VA healthcare systems where I attended meetings with disabled veterans and learned for the first time about the DAV. I was so impressed with the work they do to help millions of veterans, including providing necessary services like transportation, education, and financial opportunities. Today, I stand a proud partner of the DAV in the 2023 DAV 5K. My company, Veterans Development Corporation, is a general contracting firm working with many disabled veterans, and I hope that by sharing my story, many other disabled veterans will be able to reach their goals once they conclude their service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 11th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston. If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of the dry season in the islands, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is Susan and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and this month we're talking about our free guide, the top year-end financial tips. Mike, the holidays are coming, and that brings with it the desire to gift to your family. What are the rules around the annual gifting limits?
Well, you, Susan, owe me a gift every single year, as we know. But I don't think that's what we're actually talking about. What the rules state is that you're able to make gifts in 2023 up to $17,000 without triggering any sort of reporting or paperwork requirements to the IRS. If you go above that $17,000 exemption amount per person, then you do have to file a gift tax return. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be any taxes owed. That's where a tax professional really comes into play here to make sure you understand what the ramifications of that are. But, gifts to 529 plans, for instance, if you're looking to fund a specific goal, are very common this time of year.
So if someone's thinking about gifting away as a strategy to reduce their taxable estate, Mike, how do they go about that if they want to give away much more than the $17,000? That's the freebie, if you will.
Honestly, more than we can get to in a quick discussion, but you need to talk to a couple of planners here to make sure you understand the tax ramifications and understand the current limits, because states like Massachusetts just completely redid their estate tax, so there's new things to know about that type of strategy.
Folks, we have information about gifting as well as much more in our brand new guide, The Top Year-End Financial Tips. You can get your copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001, or request one online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch. A complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Well, one day after the S&P 500 added to its longest winning streak since November of 2021, markets today are pulling back slightly as traders react to a steady stream of third quarter earnings. Right now, the Dow is off by 0.33%, S&P 500 down 0.25%, and the NASDAQ down by 25 points, just under 0.25%. Russell 2000 is edging higher. 10-year Treasury yield up by 5 basis points at 4.56%, and crude oil up 1.75%, trading at $76.64 a barrel. Disney shares currently popping 7% after beating earnings forecast for the third quarter, but did fall short of revenue estimates as a result of a decline in ad revenue. ARM Holdings posted its first earnings report since its IPO, beating street revenue expectations, where the chipmaker generated $806 million for the third quarter, well above estimates of $744 million. And Lyft posted third quarter bookings of $3.55 billion, below forecasts of $3.9 billion, while its fourth quarter bookings guidance fell short of street estimates. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
As a reminder, folks, this week we're fortunate to be partnering with our Boston affiliate WRKO as they're raising money for the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The Radiothon is tomorrow, but today we have the privilege of speaking with a few individuals in particular, and joining me now on the line is Rob Santiago. He's the Commissioner of Veteran Services for the City of Boston. He joined that group back in 2016 as Deputy Commissioner, and he's the first Puerto Rican and LGBTQ Veterans Commissioner in the city's history after retiring from the military in the Navy for 20 years. Rob, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk about this great organization.
So before we get there, Rob, would you mind talking to me a little bit about your role with the City of Boston and just what the Department of Veteran Services does there and your role for the last, 7 years in that job as Deputy Commissioner for Veteran Services?
Well, what we do here in the City of Boston Veteran Services Office, we advocate for all our veterans and their families, and what we do is ensure that they get the quality of life that they've earned because of their time in service, whether it's through the Mass General Law Chapter 115 or processing VA claims, and also working with organizations like the DAV to ensure that we do a warm handoff to our veterans for the services that they provide.
Would it be all right with you if we speak a little bit about your time in the military and your service and what it was like after you retired from the service?
Yeah, sure, most definitely.
Tell me a little bit about your 20 years. So you served in the Navy. When did you retire, and what was your service like? What caused you to serve?
I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and I hope the listeners don't use that against me. But I joined the Navy straight out of high school, and one of the reasons why I joined the Navy is because I did a report on them incidentally in high school, and it just really piqued my interest in wanting to serve my country through the U.S. Navy. I joined was in very different units. I started off on the USS Guam out of Norfolk, Virginia. From there, I went to Central Europe and worked for the Supreme Allied Commander. And then from there, went to the other side of the world, into Yokosuka, Japan, where I served on board the Prudence class destroyer, the USS O'Brien, and that brought me to Puerto Rico, where I served with them down there in Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico. And then the USS George Washington, aircraft carrier out of Norfolk. Then from there, it brought me here to Boston, where I had the opportunity and the honor to serve on board the oldest commissioned warship afloat in the world, Old Ironsides, the USS Constitution. So I fell in love with Boston, fell in love in Boston, and I've been here ever since 2005. I retired off the USS Constitution back in 2008.
What was that like for you? So talk to me about your retirement and moving into civilian life. What were the challenges that you found, and what sort of resources were available to you?
Well, there were more challenges than what I expected, and that's one of the things that's very important for me as commissioner, is to ensure that those service members that have finally decided to leave service and transition into civilian life, that they are prepared. The challenges for me was, serving in the military, you have an identity. You're either a commander, you're either a chief, you're either a petty officer, and then all of a sudden, from one day to another, now you're Rob Santiago. You no longer have that title anymore. So it was a drastic change in basically my life. You go from serving, and then all of a sudden you don't know what you're going to wear the next day, so to speak.
Yeah.
But the transition, it posed a lot of challenges. I didn't immediately go into the workforce. I decided to take some time off with the thought that, okay, I got 20 years of military experience that should, help me out with regards to landing a good job. That wasn't the case. I needed to work to get a job. So it was a job within a job. Fortunately for me, I landed working at the VA healthcare system in Jamaica Plain. Did a lot of volunteer work within the veterans community, because who better to serve veterans than veterans? And that gave me the opportunity to also meet a lot of people, meet a lot of fellow veterans, and it landed to where I am today. First as deputy commissioner, back in 2016 and then in 2019 as commissioner.
Is there anything you'd like to speak specifically about the work with the DAV? I know we've learned quite a bit about the organization, but from your perspective as commissioner for the city of Boston, how do they fit into the overall work that you do?
Oh, they fit in. It's a perfect marriage, actually. The DAV, they do a lot of great work. They advocate for our veterans and for all of us down in D.C. To talk to in this case, the Massachusetts delegation. They have a lot of critical policy goals that they advocate for down in Congress and in the halls of Congress, and that's huge. Having that advocacy down in D.C. is big for the veterans community, but also what they do for us. What they do for our veterans. They process the VA claims for our veterans, and also they have a free transportation system for those veterans that need to get to their appointments, either at the VA or anywhere else for that matter. So working with them and partnering with them is very critical to what we do here in the City of Boston Veteran Services, and not just here in Boston, but also with all our veterans, throughout the Commonwealth and beyond. They do great work. They provide a range of services that include access to benefits, transportation, like I mentioned, and so much more. And the great thing about it is it's all free to our veterans, and you can't put pun intended, you can't put a price on that.
Yeah. It's Rob Santiago. He's the Commissioner of Veteran Services, a 20-year Navy veteran, and joins us today to talk about his role as Commissioner for Veteran Services for the City of Boston and the work that he does, in particular with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Rob, really appreciate you joining us today. Hopefully I'll see you on Saturday at the 5K, and look forward to chatting with you again sometime soon. Thank you.
Most definitely. Thank you very much. I unfortunately will not be there on Saturday. I have 5 other events that I have to go through in the City of Boston, but everyone knows that I'm there in spirit.
Again, that's Rob Santiago. He's the Commissioner of Veteran Services for the City of Boston. Thank you, Rob. Let's take a quick break here on the Financial Exchange. When we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit about pending work to be done on the MBTA and what that might mean for all the commuters out there. Stay tuned here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This is your home for the most comprehensive coverage of the economy and the trends on Wall Street. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Building a solid financial strategy is a core element to enjoying your retirement years. That's why you need advice that you can count on. At the Armstrong Advisory Group, we understand the challenges of positioning your assets to help you maintain your wealth over time. Our goal is to offer advice that is both suitable and in your best interest. When you hire one of us, you hire all of us so you can be comfortable knowing that every advisor in our firm is dedicated to helping you create a realistic plan for your later years. Visit us today at armstrongadvisory.com and sign up for a free, no-obligation planning session. Click the Get Started button at the top right corner of the homepage, and you can select the day and time that works best for you. Go to armstrongadvisory.com and let us help you secure your financial future. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of the dry season in the islands, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com. Legacy planning is incredibly important if you want to make sure you keep your assets in your family. But if it isn't done properly, you can create significant problems. Gifting assets to your children is admirable, but may not always be the best course of action, especially if there are financial difficulties or a divorce proceeding. Learn how to protect yourself and your family by calling Cushing & Dolan and asking for their brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. In it, you'll learn about information related to the gifting process, what tax issues may arise from a major gift like a home or a vacation property, and what happens to the asset if a child has creditor issues. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K Boston. Let's meet their CEO, Mark Vonner.
I served proudly in the Marine Corps from 1981 to 1984 and was honored to receive the U.S. Marine Corps Expeditionary Medal, one of the oldest decorations still issued to active duty personnel. I started Veterans Development Corporation to give back to the veteran community. Many of my employees are former veterans, and it is my distinct pleasure to work with them each and every day. This is why I'm so excited to be partnering with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts on this year's DAV 5K. If not for the DAV, many of our disabled veterans would not have access to critical services that they need to live comfortably. I hope that by telling my story, many more of our veterans will achieve their goals and dreams post-service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 11th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston. Miss any of the show? You can catch up at your convenience by visiting financialexchangeshow.com and clicking the on-demand icon, where you'll find all of our interviews and full shows. This is your home for the latest business and financial news in New England and around the country. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, Mike. The MBTA has just rolled out a comprehensive plan to repair tracks across the system and lift all speed restrictions by the end of 2024. It'll include just under 2 dozen multi-day closures of different segments of track on each of the 4 subway lines over the next 13 months. Some of those will be closed for 4 days. Some can be closed up to 21 days. There will be free bus services provided during any of the shutdowns. But this is going to fix it, Mike. It's going to fix it. So I take you back to August of 2022, when I'm going to quote directly from the MBTA website. This is from the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. T to complete 5 years of construction in 30 days. Wow, that's a quick pace. That's like time travel. We're going to replace over 3,500 feet of 38-year-old Orange Line track and tie replacement work that will allow for the removal of speed restrictions, improving travel time to Orange Line riders.
Has it done so? Did we complete that mission?
What are we doing here, Mike? I guess this in theory is better than them doing nothing, but the problem is they closed the whole Orange Line a year ago and said the work we did was going to get rid of speed restrictions on the Orange Line. Now you're saying you got to close parts of all 4 for various different time periods. Why should there be any trust that the work that's going to be done now is going to result in meaningful improvements when, in fact, things are worse than they were on the Orange Line before they did the last work?
I think what you alluded to here is my biggest problem, is just a seeming history of way over-promising and significantly under-delivering here on infrastructure when it comes to the MBTA. Almost universally, whether it's the Green Line extension, whether it's repairs to the Orange Line, the time frames that are given are way off base, and the work that they claim is going to get done is A, over budget, and B, oftentimes not good enough. The Green Line one just really, we've been talking about the Orange Line delays, but if anybody missed on what's been going on, the Green Line has basically been having to travel at a snail's pace because
like 3 to 4 miles an hour.
What was it? The ties were too narrow or something along those lines. The track was too narrowly installed.
This is the entire new Green Line extension. So not old track. This is new track that they built at the wrong gauge.
And I mean, that was a project that, again, in terms of overpromising and underliving, was delayed, at least 5 years compared to when they initially announced. It might have been a decade. Probably came in way over budget. I'm with you, Chuck. Like, this is probably necessary. They kind of have to do it. But I think, once again, sitting there and saying, hey, we're going to be doing all these repairs and shutting down lines over the next year and a half, and it's going to lead to remarkably better speeds and getting rid of slow zones, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I'd rather you just didn't promise that sort of thing. And if you can show me significant improvement in speeds and getting trains on time, then take your victory lap then.
What I really want is I want the MBTA to go on an expedition. I want them to go to Singapore. I want them to go to London. I want them to go to Hong Kong.
Isn't that where the leader of the MBTA was working from anyway?
Maybe there's a... I want them to go to all of the places that have the best mass transit in the world. And I want them to hire every single person who works there and have them do the repair work. That's what I want.
I'll tell you what, that sounds great, but I'd settle for just the New York subway. You can even flood every time it rains. That's fine. Just, be as reliable as New York City. That's a low bar. It's a low bar. That's all I'm asking.
Right, build your track at the right gauge. Not a little bit too narrow or too wide so your trains have to go slower than they're supposed to go.
And it's troublesome because I would genuinely support a lot of policy that would fund more money into the MBTA if I had any conviction that it would be money well spent.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'm not a big fan of extra fees, but I'd be strongly in favor of saying, hey, we're going to increase tolls on roads that enter into Boston and funnel that money into the MBTA if they didn't have such a terrible track record of spending that money on useless stuff that doesn't work.
Agreed.
If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December, according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of dry season on the island, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com and learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean Paradise is waiting for you, so head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Mike, do you see the news that Mass General Brigham is going to be partnering with Best Buy as a tech partner to provide at-home healthcare services, including real-time medical data transmission like heart rate, oxygen levels, body temperature, back to physicians at hospitals?
I did, and I read the whole article, and I still have no idea what Best Buy's role is in all of this.
Well,
give you sound bars or something.
Here's your
HDMI adapters.
Here's your nurse, and here's your Bose sound bar. What? I'm just not getting it. I must be missing something. I know they have a health unit.
They got the Geek Squad. The Geek Squad is going to help get the information from you to your doctor.
It doesn't even seem like that's the case. It doesn't even seem like Best Buy had any role in developing the technology that's used to communicate the problems to the Mass General Brigham. I thought maybe it had to do with their delivery network because Best Buy has, a fairly impressive delivery network, not quite akin to Amazon's, but it's significant. It's nationwide. But I don't know what Best Buy's doing here.
Maybe they're going to rebrand as the Physique Squad.
That would be good. Yeah.
Or what about the tweak squad? If you now that's more for like sports injuries. We'll figure something out there. In any case, there are a few problems that I actually have with this kind of data being transmitted in this way. The first is there are an awful lot of people that really don't secure their home networks in any meaningful way. Unencrypted networks and bad passwords for your network, like your last name and stuff like that.
Or your address, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just worry about patient privacy because, and look, maybe this is some of the stuff that Best Buy will help with, which is like setting your router up correctly so that your info's protected.
Or perhaps just don't allow the device to connect to Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
right?
but
if it's just a wireless device that has a 5G connection, then that solves a lot of the problems.
Yeah, so I'm still not sure what Best Buy is going to do.
Right. I'm all on board. The idea is good, which is, hey, we can provide at-home health care a hell of a lot cheaper than we can do it by having you sit in a hospital and having to charge Medicare and your health insurance plan for all these extra days in the hospital. Like, let's just bring the care to you. Good idea. What is Best Buy doing?
Here's a Roku stick.
Yeah, you get a free Apple TV with the purchase of a new hip.
I just don't get it. Yeah, somebody hopefully can explain this to me someday, but the Boston Globe didn't, so.
It's, yeah. We'll automatically enroll you in Best Buy's rewards program.
Serenity now!
I just don't know. Let's take a quick break here. We got more coming up in hour 2 of the Financial Exchange. We'll see you in just a bit.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today we're talking about the implications of gifting your assets away. Todd, what happens if you give your home to your child in an effort to protect it from the nursing home, and later on you decide you want to sell it?
Yeah, that's just one of the problems of giving away your house, but let's explore it. If you give your house to your child thinking, okay, that was easy, but now you don't own it. So now you really have no right to live there and, of course, no right to sell it. Right now, if you happen to have kids that are really nice and you ask their permission, which I don't ever want my clients to have to do, to say, please sell the house, you've also given them a huge tax liability because all the proceeds would go to them. Now, you don't have the money you need to buy your new house. And plus, if they don't live with you, then they don't get this capital gains exclusion that goes around along with selling your primary residence. So you're creating an adverse capital gains tax bill for them to pay. And then in addition to that, if they are nice, after they pay the tax, then they have to give you the money back, which could create a gift tax problem for them and impact their estate planning efforts. Finally, you get the money back, and then you can go ahead and buy another house. Folks, don't go through that. Set up an irrevocable trust to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care.
Educate yourself about the implications of gifting your assets away. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request a copy from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network. If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of the dry season in the islands, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
Legacy planning is incredibly important if you want to make sure you keep your assets in your family. But if it isn't done properly, you can create significant problems. Gifting assets to your children is admirable, but may not always be the best course of action, especially if there are financial difficulties or a divorce proceeding. Learn how to protect yourself and your family by calling Cushing & Dolan and asking for their brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. In it, you'll learn about information related to the gifting process, what tax issues may arise from a major gift like a home or a vacation property, and what happens to the asset if a child has creditor issues. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
For 40 years, Cancer Support Community has been a relentless ally for anyone impacted by cancer, with free services provided online and in person, with their newest location in Massachusetts. Connect with Cancer Support Community Massachusetts for free emotional support, educational resources, patient navigation, financial counseling, and more. 617-797-3391. CancerSupportMass.org. CancerSupportMass.org.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Fine-tuning your financial strategy as the year comes to a close is very important. So this month, we're sharing what we believe are the most crucial year-end financial tips. As 2023 winds down, there are several opportunities for you to consider that may help you end this year with as little concern as possible about your overall planning. Things like maximizing your charitable giving, offsetting your capital gains, and contributing as much money as you can to your IRA or 401k plan. We'll walk you through these issues and more in our new free guide, guide called the Top Year-End Financial Tips. Get yours today by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can also request the guide online by visiting our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor that provides investment advisory services. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else, and do not guarantee profit. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by taking part in this year's DAV 5K. For more information, visit DAV5K.Boston. The DAV 5K Boston is proudly presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Mike Armstrong.
As we round into the 11 o'clock hour, we got markets pretty much flat today. The Dow's down 34 points. The S&P's up 1. The NASDAQ up 17. So I'm not even going to call it a mixed market when by the time I'm done saying this, the Dow could be positive. The S&P could be negative. It's just not much movement in either direction right now after a period of rather heavy volatility for 2 to 3 weeks. You know, we got to mid-October. The S&P 500 was at almost 4,400. It then, by the end of October, dropped down to 4,100. And then 8 days later, you're back up near 4,400. So just a little dipsy-do that we went through for a couple weeks there. We've got the 10-year U.S. Treasury selling off 4 basis points to 4.55%. Oil West Texas Intermediate up a little bit today after a pretty sustained run downward over the last month and a half. It's up $1.40 a barrel to $76.72 right now. National gas price average, by the way, is at $3.40 a gallon, continuing to slide from the mid-380s where it was just a month and a half ago. We got gold up $9.80 an ounce to $1967.60, and that is what's going on in markets today.
Yeah, in case anybody's been sleeping under a rock, it has been a now, 8 days, no, not 8 trading days, but pretty long streak of wins in the stock market, all turning from, I think, November 1st when Jerome Powell had his press conference. And generally, it's been a turn in expectations around how much higher interest rates need to go or perhaps lower from here. And that has boosted stocks in the short term, although, leads to some interesting questions about what exactly happened over the last week when it comes to financial conditions in general.
It has actually been 8 straight days in the S&P 500. Today would be 9 if we were to end up getting there. So we'll see what happens, I guess. America's population projected to shrink by 2,100, according to figures from the Census.
Is this useful information to have?
No.
Okay. That's where I was going to. I think that far too much can change in a country regarding its immigration policy, birth rate, to make any real useful information out of what's going to happen 77 years from now.
The ones that I think are informative are what might happen in the next 15 to 20 years.
Sure.
I also think they're more directly influenced by policy today. But just as an example, if you look just 8 years ago, back in 2015, the U.S. population in 2060 was projected to be north of 400 million. Now it's projected to be like 360 million. So that's a pretty big shift in a small period of time. Even as recently as 2018, 5 years ago, U.S. population in 2060 was projected to be right around 400 million. So things can change in a span of 4 to 5 years rather quickly. you obviously have three levers that influence this more than anything else. The first is birth rates. The second is death rates. The third is immigration. When we look at this, in my opinion, Mike, based on what we're seeing, there hasn't been a meaningful shift in immigration in years. You're basically at a fixed rate of immigration growth in the U.S.
Yep.
The two big things, birth rates continue to decline. And the last 2 to 3 years, especially since the pandemic, you have had a massive upswing in death rates. And not from COVID. COVID was a 2020 phenomenon where it affected that. The big things that you are seeing the last couple of years are lower life expectancies for a variety of non-COVID reasons that are rather ugly. And the other thing that's quite bothersome about it is that it's if you look at the demographic data, it's very clearly issues that are predominantly impacting the life expectancy of folks with lower incomes. It's a real problem, the decline in life expectancy among households that have bottom quartile incomes right now.
Yeah.
A real problem.
There have been a number of studies looking at just the quality of health care provided in that case, whether it's on Medicaid or just, there is just a real, as you pointed out, death rate trend occurring based on income.
So, in terms of what it means that the U.S. population is going to shrink by 2100, well, quite honestly, unless you're 10 years old or younger right now, and if you're 10 years old, you're probably not listening to this show, it doesn't matter.
Even if you're 10, I'm not sure it matters.
I don't know. You might be 90 then, and maybe you could just, feel that the population's shrinking, and that does... But... yeah, it's just.
It's also not a it's not a useful prediction.
No, what can you do with that information? Are you gonna if you're anything older than 10 years old, what are you going to do with that information? There's nothing to do. You don't change an investment thesis now because of something that might happen 80 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you want to use it to make an argument for doing what you can to change that, right? If you're a policymaker and your goal is to not see the population shrink, which, we should talk about, but, one of the key areas that obviously leads to problems there is all sorts of social welfare programs don't really work in a shrinking population scenario, at least not how we do it today. But quite honestly, programs like Social Security are going to run out way before 2100. So we're going to have to fix those problems first anyway. So, yeah, I guess you could use this as another argument for, hey, maybe we should have more immigration. Maybe we should have policies that try and influence the birth rate, which have not been successful anywhere else in the world. But, yeah, other than that, I'm not sure what to do with this information. So I'll leave it there.
When we look at this issue, ultimately, the challenge that you run into with a shrinking population is twofold. The first you mentioned, which is, look, a lot of social programs are built on the idea that more people pay in, it pays for later benefits, and so on and so on. So that's one problem. The second is just if you look at even just how businesses operate, businesses want to grow generally, and when you have shrinking populations, that's fewer people to sell to, and so you run into a sales growth problem there. Again, if it's happening in 2080 or 2090, it's not something you need. In terms of things to worry about, this is probably somewhere between number 6,000 and 8,000 on my list. Now, if you want to break this into some of its chunks, the bigger problem, in my opinion, declining birth rates generally happen in wealthier societies.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why they tend to happen is because if you look historically, high birth rates have largely been supported by the fact that families needed to have lots of kids in order to do the work needed to survive. You needed them on the farm. You needed them foraging. You needed them hunting.
They also happen in poorer societies where the government tells you can only have one kid, but that's a bit of a different story.
Yes. So the birth rate I kind of look at and I'm like, it's going to be what it's going to be. the last thing that I want to do as a human being is force someone to have a kid, because it's kind of one of those big decisions that you have to be fully on board with before you decide to do it, right? I don't like. You don't want to do the opposite of the China one-child policy and have a 3-child policy just because you want to get your birth rates up.
Yeah.
That's probably not great. The piece that I think needs urgent attention is the death rate. And not in terms of, hey, we're getting older, we need to figure out how to live longer. But much more, why are so many of our people dying decades before they're supposed to? That's a real problem. Because those are easily avoidable deaths. More often than not, it's not from, increase in disease and stuff like that. It's human factors. There's a tremendous uptick in automobile-related deaths right now. There's a tremendous uptick in opioid-related deaths right now. There's a tremendous uptick in firearm-related deaths. These are things that are under our control.
Yeah.
And we're not dealing with them appropriately. Opioid deaths, we're seeing, I believe the latest number is over 100,000 a year now. 25 years ago, there were like 1,000 of these in the U.S. each year.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing 100,000 plus a year.
Right. And they are a net increase, right? We're not. It's not something where we were having, different type of drug deaths, and now they've switched over to opioids. No, these are net increases in deaths when we talk about opioids.
So these are the things that I think we need to be addressing, which are, why are so many of our people dying in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s from things that are preventable and that are occurring now in ways that they didn't previously? That's a real problem, and I don't have any answers, because there are plenty of smart people that are looking at this. There was the one person who said we need to bring back shopping malls, because that would help us
fix opioids.
Just to help us feel more connected to people, and maybe that would solve all this.
I don't think so. What do I know? Maybe shopping malls are.
Were you here for that day or no?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
I recall. Yeah, it was going to fix everything.
Yeah, just bring back the malls, and that'll fix it. But that's where I think that the problem is. If you want to talk about the second one that I think is a great opportunity right now, I think increasing paths to legal immigration. Oh my goodness! Especially given the potential brain drain from China as China is going through this crackdown in terms of what's allowed socially there. You've already got plenty of money that's flowing overseas. I would have to imagine you have an awful lot of people who would love to be able to follow that money in the event that they could immigrate successfully to the U.S.
Maybe that's the strategy, right? We're at this enmity point with China, and maybe that is the path to finally getting some common sense immigration reform done. Wouldn't that be exciting? It's just been such a hot button. It's just been a taboo.
China, by the way.
Yeah, sure. It's just been such a taboo subject for years. But yeah, if you could use this as hey, this is our counter to Russia and China, is we're going to allow mass migration from those countries of their most intelligent people, that would be fantastic.
Not even most intelligent. Like I don't. Again, we're talking about right now. Hasn't the big problem for the last couple of years been, hey, nobody wants to work anymore?
True. Yeah. Nobody wants to drive a truck, or nobody wants to. Take a job.
Give me truck drivers. Give me everyone from anyone who wants to come and work and participate and be part of society. There's your growth opportunity too.
At the very least, stop kicking out college graduates who get their education at MIT.
If you want to also talk about the way to fix Social Security without raising taxes or cutting benefits,
there's your answer.
There it is. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we've got trivia. And then talking about how working from home has reshaped what Americans buy.
Text us at 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show. And let us know what you think about the stories we are covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of the dry season in the islands, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com. Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K Boston. Let's meet their CEO, Mark Vonner.
I'm no stranger to the military community. My late uncle, Albert Vonner, served proudly in the 1st Marine Division in World War II and gave the ultimate sacrifice for his country. I am surrounded by a family of disabled veterans, including my father, Victor, and brother, Timothy. I am a veteran, and I have dedicated my business and my life to helping veterans. My company, Veterans Development Corporation, works to help disabled veterans every day, and it's one of the key reasons why I'm such a big supporter of Dan Stack and the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. I am so thrilled to be proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K.
Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 11th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Hi folks, it's Susan and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group to talk with you today about our top year-end planning tips, which are featured in our brand new guide for the month of November. There's a lot of information in this guide, Mike, that we can certainly use throughout the course of the year, but some of the tips that we've included, if you don't implement them before year-end, it's too late. What are those?
Yeah, so a lot of them have to do with retirement accounts. So for instance, if you have a required minimum distribution, that's a 12/31 due date, and most of the custodians actually require you to do it earlier than that, so get on it if you have an RMD. If you're considering a Roth conversion, that also needs to be done by December 31st. You can't do it until your tax filing deadline. And 401k contributions, once again, must be in to your employer-sponsored plan before year-end. You have a little bit more flexibility if you have an IRA, but with some of those things, it's by year-end, not the tax filing deadline. There's also a big one to keep track of this time of year that a lot of people look into, and that has to do with harvesting potential losses. And given the way that markets have fluctuated this year, it very well could be that you have some capital losses in an investment portfolio, and at least looking at those and seeing how they could benefit you from a tax perspective is important. Obviously, caveat, speak with a tax professional or advisor when looking at this type of thing.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Folks, you can request your free copy of this brand new guide by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001. You can also request your free copy of our top year-end planning tips guide by visiting our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia brought to you by Applebee's. Choose from a variety of half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m., including half-price boneless buffalo wings, half-price spinach and artichoke dip, and half-price warm pretzels dipped in beer cheese. Gather with friends any day of the week at Applebee's and say hello to half-price appetizers served late night, because half off is just more fun. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood, void where prohibited, dine in only. Well, on this date in 1799, Napoleon pulled off a coup and became a dictator of France under the title of First Consul. On November 22nd, Napoleon, directed by Ridley Scott, hits theaters across the country, and the trailer looks phenomenal if you haven't seen that yet. So our trivia question today for that movie is, who plays Napoleon in the upcoming flick there? Once again, who plays Napoleon in the upcoming movie. Be the third person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you'll win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and be registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. Be sure to include the keyword Applebee's in your text, and we'll give away that Applebee's gift card on tomorrow's show. 617-362-1385, and the third correct response will be our winner. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Do you guys know that Napoleon was not actually short?
What? Explain.
So, Napoleon, it's believed that he was somewhere around 5'6".
It's short.
That's pretty short.
The average Frenchman at the time was 5'5". And in fact, the requirements for military service in France at the time were 5 feet tall for regular service and 5'6" for the elite Imperial Guard. So this, gets to the fact that people have gotten bigger over time, mostly because of better nutrition and things like that. But it's actually that more likely that Napoleon was basically average height for the time, rather than him being short.
Who knew? That's the every joke.
Say that again?
That's like every joke.
What do you do with the Napoleon complex now?
Right.
I've had one of those my whole life.
Me too. So I'm such an angry hockey player.
I know. This is why I'm me. Like, how work from home has reshaped what Americans buy. So what we're seeing is that Americans are still spending more money on stuff than they did before the pandemic. But you've got, some changes on what they're buying, because they're not buying, grills and pools and stuff like that. It's different stuff. But I think that ultimately, trying to figure out how much of this is because some people are working from home versus some people are not, I still think a lot of this is going to prove to be temporary, just temporary maybe over like a 5 to 7 year period instead of a 2 to 3 year one.
Yeah, so there's a number of charts that Wall Street Journal put together here to make this argument. And I think the argument that they're attempting to make is that something about the pandemic permanently shifted how spending in our economy works, and while it had been trending over the last decade more towards experiences and service, that was the big story, right? Like, hey, I don't want something for Christmas this year. I'm really trying to go on this trip, so I want to try and save money for this trip. We're not going to do as many gifts this year, things along those lines. And you did see that to some degree in terms of where consumers were spending money. 2/3 of consumer spending was going towards services, and that was up by quite a bit. The point that they're making is that it dropped significantly, obviously, when nobody could travel anywhere or do anything service-related, and it hasn't quite made it back to those 2019 levels. And I don't know, I just don't find that compelling enough to believe that it's never going to.
Well, and even if it's not back at 2019 levels, it's still pretty close to where it was in 2013.
True.
So how do we know that 2019 isn't the outlier and maybe we're right back to where it should be?
Yeah, I mean, as of September 2023, services spending came in at 66.7% of consumer spending. The other metrics here, they talk about how retail sales at sporting goods, hobby, musical, and bookstores is markedly higher than it was prior to the pandemic. That's all true, but how much of that is just inflation?
Right. Okay, so you were seeing like a $7 billion a month spend there before the pandemic. Now it's $9 billion a month.
All the stuff's up 20% in cost. Like, of course it is.
Exactly. It pretty much covers the whole thing there.
Yeah. So, I'm not sure I buy the argument. Maybe there's something to it. Maybe we all did buy bigger houses, and so we need to furnish them more permanently. I don't know. But I'm not sure that I'm buying the overall argument here that we're getting away from experiences as a society and more focusing on goods. Not buying it.
You know what my last purchase was on Amazon that I've never bought before? I bought a watch repair kit. I had a couple pins break in my watch that's like 15 or 20 years old, and so I had to replace a couple pins and decided to do it myself. $11.
Putting watch repairmen out of business single-handedly. Thanks a lot,
I
Chuck.
bought a good instead of paying for a service.
Killing small business.
Quick break here. More next.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
We are the Debt Destroyer Network. Any debt you have, credit card, tax, student loan debt, call now for free information that helps you destroy your debt. It's great advice. Plus, when you make this free call now, we have Debt Destroyer experts ready to help. They can show you how to destroy your debt and get your life back on track. Debt problems don't have to be overwhelming. You can live stress-free and debt-free. Credit cards, medical bills, IRS tax problems, even student loan debt. Learn about free programs offered by the credit card companies, hospitals, and even the government that can help slash your debt. Call the Debt Destroyer now for free information. Call now. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. 800-430-8804. Again, that's 800-430-8804.
If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of the dry season in the islands, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Building a solid financial strategy is a core element to enjoying your retirement years. That's why you need advice that you can count on. At the Armstrong Advisory Group, we understand the challenges of positioning your assets to help you maintain your wealth over time. Our goal is to offer advice that is both suitable and in your best interest. When you hire one of us, you hire all of us so you can be comfortable knowing that every advisor in our firm is dedicated to helping you create a realistic plan for your later years. Visit us today at armstrongadvisory.com and sign up for a free, no-obligation planning session. Click the Get Started button at the top right corner of the homepage, and you can select the day and time that works best for you. Go to armstrongadvisory.com and let us help you secure your financial future. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today, we're talking about the implications of gifting assets away. Todd, if you're trying to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care expenses, what are the risks in giving your assets to a child rather than transferring them to an irrevocable trust?
Yeah, that's a great question. So many people feel like, oh my gosh, it's an irrevocable trust. I've lost all control. I've given up the ability to do just about anything. You hear that all the time. But you know what? Think about it. If I instead gave my investment portfolio to my children, right, or my rental property to my children, how much control do I have over that? I got none. I got to rely on them to pretty much do everything, not to mention the fact that, let's say I gave my rental property away. Technically, I can't sell it. I can't do anything without the children doing it. And what you forget is the children then would be entitled to all the rent. Well, you gave away your rental income. What about if a child gets a divorce and you gave them an investment portfolio to hold on to? Well, that money would all be subject to their divorce or any of their creditors. Plus, it all gets picked up on their income tax return. Folks, you give away assets, you lose all control and create lots of adverse income tax and gift tax consequences. You're way better off setting up an irrevocable trust to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care.
Educate yourself about the implications of gifting your assets away. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets right now by calling 866-848-5699, or you can request a copy from LegalExchangeShow.com. Once again, 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. For your chance to win our daily trivia contest, text us at 617-362-1385. Complete rules are available at financialexchangeshow.com. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia question today was, who plays Napoleon in the upcoming film coming out on November 22nd? Well, that will be Joaquin Phoenix. That movie is going to be 2.5 hours long, and Ridley Scott will actually be releasing a 4-hour version for Apple Plus. Randy is taking home our Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. Randy's from Lowell, Mass. And Randy's also eligible to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's, which we'll give away on tomorrow's show. And trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Choose from a variety of half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m. because half off is just more fun. Now, that's eating good in the neighborhood, void where prohibited, dine in only.
As promised, joining us now is Dan Stack, president of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. And as I mentioned earlier this week, we are helping out with the WRKO Radiothon for the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. You'll be hearing more about that tomorrow. But as always, Dan, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Mike, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is fantastic. Looking really forward to tomorrow and then again on Saturday with the 5K road race in South Boston.
Yeah, as am I, Dan. Really, really excited about that. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the DAV. But before we get there, I must have talked to you a good dozen times now on air. And I was familiar with your military background, but not some of the details. Can you talk to me a little bit about your specific work when it comes to mental health, post-traumatic stress disorder, and then also, the DAV's outreach center in that regard? I hope I'm not getting too personal here, but I would love to hear a little bit about the mental health side of the situation.
No. I was in the United States Air Force from 1969 to 1973, and was hired by the DAV in 1974 after I got back from Southeast Asia. I'm not a combat veteran, so after I was hired by the DAV, I was assigned to offices in New York, Boston, and then Cleveland, Ohio. When I was in Cleveland, Ohio, my supervisor came to me and said, hey, the DAV is starting this new study, and we're wondering if you might be able to actually assist in regards to this. And I said, well, I said, what's it about? And he said, how Vietnam affected disabled vets. And I go, I'm not a combat vet. And he goes, yeah, that's kind of why I'm assigning you, because we don't know how this study may affect some of the combat vets that work in our office. And I said, sure, not a problem. So I got to work with the professor that went to the Veterans Administration, the American Legion, and to the Veterans of Foreign Wars and asked if they would fund his study to study the effects of how Vietnam had on veterans, and especially in the years that he was looking at it. The funding, finally he went to the DAV, and the DAV gave him a $50,000 funding fee. With that, Dr. John Wilson and his staff at the Cleveland State University actually came up and were interviewing a lot of veterans. And I was assigned to work with that group. And the short end of the story is, after probably working on it for a year, that's when Dr. John Wilson came out with the diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. The interesting part about that is that the Veterans Administration still didn't recognize it. So the Disabled American Veterans had to legislatively and get that added to not only to the DSM-3 for psychiatric diagnoses, but it also had to get legislatively activated to the VA compensation rules. Part of his study showed that most veterans that were returning, especially that had traumatic events in Vietnam, did not want to go to the Veterans Administration, VA medical centers, because they were afraid that if they expressed any of the thoughts that they had, it might be a situation where they would get locked up. Mental health care back in the 70s is a lot different than it is today.
I can imagine.
And you would get immediately sent to a psychiatrist, and they'd put you on sometimes very heavy medication in order to deal with some of the sleep problems you were having. So he felt that it would be best if there was like a intermediary place that they could go. And so that's when the Disabled American Veterans came out and started what we call basically the Forgotten Warrior Project, and we started our DAV outreach centers. And I was fortunate enough that I was able to naturally open up the first one in Cleveland, Ohio, and we had many veterans that came in. And the big thing is we would run rap groups, but it was the first place where veterans could come in that were served in Vietnam and start talking amongst each other about what they were going through.
Yeah.
And it really worked out well. And fortunately for the media caught on to it and actually was asking the Veterans Administration why they weren't doing this. And lo and behold, eventually the Veterans Administration, I don't want to say took over our outreach centers, but what they did was they created their own so that the DAV no longer needed to have the outreach centers in the VA. They're now called VA Vet Centers, and that's kind of the history of how that all came about.
Incredible.
So, I've been with the DAV over getting on close to 50 years, so the DAV has done an awful lot that veterans are not aware of when it comes to how we're kind of one of the first organizations that looks at what are the problems that vets are suffering with and how do we address it.
Dan, I know we've talked about the event before, but as you mentioned, Saturday, we've got the DAV 5K going on in Boston. I know the race is technically sold out. Would really encourage people to come down anyway and, cheer and just participate in whatever way possible. The course is, around Castle Island and down in that South Boston area. What can you tell us about the event on Saturday and how people can still be involved in one way or another?
Well, first of all, anyone who does show up and does want to register, we have a few registrations left over for walk-ins. We will always have that because, thanks to you, Mike, and the other media outlets that we've been on, we know that sometimes people will come at the last minute.
Yep.
Especially they look at the weather forecast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Only us diehards, Mike, like you and I, show up on the muddy weather and the 13-degree weather. So, that's kind of the tough part about it. So. But yeah, we'll be ready for them. Come. We have some great vendors that are going to be there, providing an awful lot of food service for everybody, free of charge. We have Wahlburgers. We have the sausage guys coming, and you can remember the line for everybody to get their sausage. They just love that.
It was a real incentive to run fast. Dan, because if you finish under like 28 minutes, you get right at the front of the line there. It's pretty good.
That does help you. Yes, that does definitely help you. But I want to also thank our presenting sponsor, Veterans Development Corporation, and Mark Varner. All your listeners need to realize that this corporation has stepped up, and they are funding the DAV 5K. So that means that every person that goes online and donates to us, or every person that registers and then kind of starts a team and that team does donation, all that money goes directly into our service programs, into our housing program that we have in the central part of the state. It goes into our transportation program that is statewide. It goes into our department service officer program that are out statewide also. So every penny that is obtained through that is put right into service work, and we're really proud of that. And again, we want to thank Mark Bonner and Veterans Development Corporation for stepping up and funding the rest of the program.
So, Dan, a big event on Saturday. I'm excited about it. But for those that cannot attend and just want to learn more and be involved with the DAV, what's the best way for them to do so?
Well, there's a couple of things that you can do. One is if you just want to donate because you're unable to be there, you can go to DAV 5K Boston, and there's a donate button that you can click on or in order to make a donation, and we would certainly appreciate it. If in fact you realize that you want to volunteer with the DAV, by all means just contact me or Mike Viella. You can do it at dstacdavma.org, and we're looking for volunteer drivers. We're looking for volunteers at the VA medical centers. You do not have to be a veteran. In fact, we have many individuals who couldn't even serve that end up coming in and volunteering to the DAV for our transportation program just simply because they want to give back to the veterans that have secured their security throughout their lifetime. So, yes, we're really excited. So, again, It's DAV 5K Boston, and click on the donate button, and we would certainly appreciate anything that comes in.
That's Dan Stack. He's the president of Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. And I, too, am looking forward to seeing him on Saturday and all the great folks that are raising money for the DAV. So thank you, Dan. Really appreciate it, and can't wait for Saturday.
And, Mike, we also want to thank the Financial Exchange for your generous contribution that you made to the 5K this year. It really means an awful lot to us, and I want to thank you.
Appreciate it, Dan. That's, again, Dan Stack from Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We are going to take a quick break here. When we come back, Stack Roulette on the Financial Exchange.
Missed one of our shows? Catch up anytime by asking your Alexa smart speaker to play the Financial Exchange. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K Boston. Let's meet their CEO, Mark Vonner.
I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 18 years old, joining a long line of family members who also served our country. After my service, I connected with the VA healthcare systems where I attended meetings with disabled veterans and learned for the first time about the DAV. I was so impressed with the work they do to help millions of veterans, including providing necessary services like transportation, education, and financial opportunities. Today, I stand a proud partner of the DAV and the 2023 DAV 5K. My company, Veterans Development Corporation, is a general contracting firm working with many disabled veterans, and I hope that by sharing my story, many other disabled veterans will be able to reach their goals once they conclude their service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proudly partnered with this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 11th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston. Legacy planning is incredibly important if you want to make sure you keep your assets in your family. But if it isn't done properly, you can create significant problems. Gifting assets to your children is admirable, but may not always be the best course of action, especially if there are financial difficulties or a divorce proceeding. Learn how to protect yourself and your family by calling Cushing & Dolan and asking for their brand new guide called Making the Most of Gifting Assets. In it, you'll learn about information related to the gifting process, what tax issues may arise from a major gift like a home or a vacation property, and what happens to the asset if a child has creditor issues. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or request it online from their website, legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Susan Powers from the Armstrong Advisory Group. There are some important financial considerations to keep in mind as the end of the year approaches, so here are some crucial tips for you to think about. Our guide this month is called the Top Year-End Planning Tips, and in it, we'll walk you through key concepts like tax loss harvesting, family gifting, and properly calculating your required minimum distributions. All are important to your overall planning. Call our office today at 800-393-4001 and get your copy of this free guide that may help you finish 2023 with less concern about your financial strategy while setting you up for a positive start in 2024. Call 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide today, or you can request it online from our website, armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. If you're looking for an incredible vacation filled with sun, fun, and no need for a passport, look no further than the United States Virgin Islands. St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John were voted the #1 vacation destination to visit this December according to U.S. News and World Report. December is the start of the dry season in the islands, so you can expect perfect temperatures, beautiful beaches, a wide variety of water sports, world-class cuisine, and a vibrant nightlife. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Make your plans now before Old Man Winter comes calling. Head to visitusvi.com. Learn about all 3 islands and plan the ideal vacation for you and your family. America's Caribbean paradise is waiting for you. So head to visitusvi.com for more information and to reserve your trip today. That's visitusvi.com. If you missed any of today's show, catch up whenever you want on our YouTube page. Find daily show segments and full shows. Just go to youtube.com and search for The Financial Exchange. This is your home for breaking business and financial news. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. Fall is in full swing. The cold weather's coming, and now's the perfect time to get a head start on your next vacation. The U.S. Virgin Islands have been named one of the top Caribbean destinations so far this year, according to Travel Pulse. Explore St. Croix, St. Thomas, or St. John, and enjoy incredible beaches, world-class dining, and fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no passport required or money to exchange. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip today. That's visitusvi.com.
Mike, what do you got for me for Stack Roulette?
If you have a couple years to spare, you can go get your 1,500 hours of required flight time, become an airline pilot, and, well, unfortunately, I'm guessing they're not going to be still paying these bonuses. But American Airlines regional carrier, PSA, is dangling $250,000 bonuses in order to poach pilots from competitors, but really they're going after some of the package delivery companies, FedEx and UPS pilots that they want to come and fly for the regionals, because we've talked about this before, but during the pandemic, these companies furloughed a bunch of pilots. A number of them ended up retiring into early retirement packages, and, you know, in general, it is an aging industry with aging pilots that have, in some cases, just aged out of the industry, because I think you can only be 65 years old and still, or you age out at 65 years old, rather, as an American pilot. But $250,000 to take these jobs at these regional carriers, and I'm sure a number of people are considering the switch. From what I understand, a bit of a drop in prestige. You go from flying a big wide-body jet at UPS or FedEx. You also aren't dealing with very many human beings, which is probably pretty nice, to dealing with a regional carrier where you might be flying smaller planes 3 times a day, a bit more headache, but $250,000 is nothing to sneeze at.
So the other thing you got to remember about airlines is the scheduling is done entirely by seniority.
Yeah.
And so when you go from, you might have had a career at UPS or FedEx or whoever, and now you're bottom rung at American or Delta or United or whoever it is, you get last priority for scheduling in pretty much anything. So it'll take you 10 to 15 years to get back to the point where you can control your schedule a little bit better. And so that's a big thing to factor in as well, and probably why they have to pay so much at this point to try to incentivize people to switch too.
No doubt. Yeah, it's an interesting industry. It's one of the only ones where I think that method actually makes some sense, the seniority method, because in the airline industry, it's not like you really get grades, right? Either you can do the job or you're fired because you're not a safe pilot, right? There's no scaling of it. Like,
No,
Jimmy,
you get to do the blimp.
Jimmy really had good performance this year. We're gonna let him fly extra planes. Like, not exactly how that space works. You scratch the paint, you're fired. But the other piece that you mentioned there is, there's the seniority piece of this. And so, if you're a senior pilot at UPS, you're not likely to take the job. But if you're that junior pilot at the bottom of the totem pole at FedEx or UPS who just joined during the pandemic, you're probably looking around and saying, well, okay,
sure,
my employer gave me, UPS came to me with this and said, hey, you might want to consider that. The writing might be on the wall there where, hey, layoffs could be coming anyway, so I might as well, take the opportunity while the getting's good.
McDonald's and Krispy Kreme are in talks to expand their partnership.
They have a partnership?
I want a Big Mac on a donut.
Oh, that's coming. That's a matter of time.
I want a Big Mac on a donut. Or, at the very least, I want donut fries that I can dip in glaze.
Where did this come from? I was not aware that they were partnering together in the first place.
So they started about a year ago at just a few McDonald's in Kentucky. I don't know why that's what they picked. But now they have expanded it as of March to 160 restaurants across Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky. And apparently they're getting good demand, not selling Big Macs on donuts, but just selling Krispy Kreme donuts during breakfast hours at McDonald's.
Yeah, because McDonald's coffee's solid.
Yeah, so
it's cheap.
Yeah.
I want a Big Mac on a donut.
It's coming.
I don't understand why Krispy Kreme failed up here. Remember they came to the Northeast
Mike,
they open and they
Donuts.
fail.
Mike,
Dunkin',
Mike,
yeah.
Anyone who comes into New England who is not from New England
Gets booted
gets
out.
gets the side eye for like 4 generations.
Yeah.
If you try to claim that you're from Maine and your family did not come over in the 1600s, you are not from
Quebec.
Maine. Right. You are not from Maine unless you came over 400 years ago or more.
Yeah, that's true. I have clients who live in New Hampshire and have lived there for 4 decades, and they're still Massachusetts folks, according to the locals. So, yeah that's fair.
You got to go back at least 4 to 5 generations. So the fact that Krispy Kreme failed against an incumbent in Dunkin' Donuts and what's the other one? Honeydew?
Yeah.
There was no chance. No chance. It would absolutely not.
This seems to run directly contrary to the piece that I'm looking at, I think from Bloomberg today, that restaurants are betting that Ozempic will make diners want more salads and pitas because seemingly that would run contradictory to a Big Mac on a glazed donut.
Yeah, you would think that. I'm trying to figure out the staying power of Ozempic.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
I mean, so the big news this week was that one of them got approved by the FDA, if I'm not mistaken, as a weight loss drug.
I think it
rather
was
than
Eli
just-
Lilly's just got approved for weight loss as well, yeah.
Right. So, it's really only a matter of time before insurance companies have to look at these and decide what sort of coverage they're going to provide because that's kind of how our system works. And I don't know. I suspect that these are going to be... They're already incredibly popular drugs when insurance hasn't been carrying them. I think it does have the possibility of really reshaping a lot of the things that we do.
And look, I think that one of the fascinating questions here is so much of our healthcare spending today is because of Americans carrying too much weight.
Yeah.
I mean, the cost benefit of, yes, this might cost X per year, but it saves Y number of thousands of dollars over the course of a lifetime. It's kind of an interesting one.
It's a fascinating trade-off.
Kind of an interesting one. The other thing that you're going to see on these is I believe that right now most of them are still required to be injected. And obviously you want to get to being able to take these orally so that it's a little bit easier. Let's take a quick break for the rest of the day. Market remains mixed. S&P's up 5 points. NASDAQ up 38. Dow down 1. We'll see you tomorrow on the Financial Exchange.